Rodney Larr. I was one that started the credit union, ran it for 23 years, and Lee Sandy was one of the first on our board, and still is.
True. I was started on the supervisory committee, and it was very interesting to be on the supervisor at that time. So, anyways, it was definitely unique. I don't think I was on the supervisory committee until we moved over to the old bank.
Well, originally we had to have 7 board members.
Yep.
5 on the loan committee and 3 on the supervisory. So you were on it originally.
Yeah. I forgot about the loan committee.
Yeah, right.
And you talked about the meeting we had that you had to have at the school.
Right. When we organized, we met at the school gymnasium in Fife Lake, and we had, I guess, at least 75 people or more that came out. We had representatives from Michigan Credit Union League, Paul Bunyan chapter credit unions were there, and we organized at that time. And we had a bunch of new members join the credit union at that time. I think we had roughly 40-some people that night join.
And then you had people contribute money to make sure that we were stable.
Right.
Who gave us money?
We had other credit unions in Paul Bunyan, well, not only from Paul Bunyan chapter, that gave us seed money. And the agreement was that they could put in a maximum $10,000 per credit union. And it was to be invested for a term of roughly 5 years. And the agreement was that they wouldn't receive any interest on that money. It was just seed money to get us going. But we had gotten that from, I think, it seems like 7 or 8 different credit unions. And we paid them interest just like we did our normal members right off the bat. So
even though we didn't
have to. Well, when I had left Galaxy Bank, or MBD at that time, and I had people in the community ask, well, why don't we start a credit union or something like that, have our own financial for our community. And we had several of them I had worked some in a credit union, had a supervisory committee for insurance credit union, so I had a little background. And I contacted Michigan Credit Union League at that time, and they said if it was a couple of years earlier, they probably would have tried to discourage us. But we had a lot of people that were interested. When we first started, you had to go at it and get letters of support so that they knew, and NCUA knew that you had different organizations that were willing to do business with us. And we started out, I believe it was 5 different townships in the area.
The thing Rod's not telling you is the reason that he was the one that they went to is they trusted him. And he'd been at the Cadillac State Bank, and everybody had used him because you were the main officer, weren't you?
Well,
you were the only one, right?
Yeah, right.
And then all of a sudden they decided to, and so that's why they trusted Rod, and they went to Rod, and that's how it got really the trust was there.
We have a good following for years.
You know, when you're left without a lot of choices, you look for other choices. And in this case, the credit union was the best choice, even though NBD was still here. And they continued to be here, I don't know for how long, but it was quite a long time.
Right.
Because they had built that building up there in the corner. But in time, we just kind of looked up. So,
sure.
Because people came to the credit union instead of the bank. So,
well, back then, we started in a bait shop. which I had. So you sold worms on this side, you took money in on the other side, which was
The worms are worth more.
yeah. You weren't into anything risky. We basically took the money in, and I would turn around and invest it at Michigan Credit Union, Central Credit Union, and we got a higher return than what we were paying our members. Once we started having demands for loans, we said we would take $100,000 at 12% interest from our members with a max of $10,000 per member. So that when that certificate came due, we didn't have everybody drawing their money out at once.
Mm-hmm.
So we got that first $12,000 within a few days, and then we said we'd take that $100,000. Then we would take another $100,000 at 11%. We did that and cut it off. The examiners thought we were crazy paying that kind of interest, but we had enough supply and demand. We had enough demand. In fact, our first loan was for $500. and the board went at it and was meeting about every 2 weeks, trying to keep up with changes and things that happened. Well, I think we surprised the league and NCUA because we continued to grow where other credit unions were not growing. We were one of the last credit unions that was probably formed. And I know I went to a couple of the other credit unions that were not growing as well as we were, and talked with them, give them ideas what we were doing to see if that would help them.
We were actually a shining star because of the growth rate. And was it expected? I don't think so. I think it just happened. There was enough demand in the area. And like Rod said, we were in 5 townships. Amazingly how we did grow. And it just didn't stop. And, when the credit union league looked at it, they didn't really understand it because it's different here. It's a different situation here, and which is not bad. It's good.
So, but we always stayed in the small towns.
Yep.
We had requests to go to Traverse. Well, that wasn't our market then. Now things have changed where everything is internet bound, so that where we were all hands on.
Yep.
You came in, you got your receipts, we got our deposit. I had taken to the bank, not here, because we used another one in Kalkaska at that time. We had some people from Five Lake that were working in Kalkaska. They got with Wayne Wire, for instance, wasn't the road commission?
Yeah.
And some of those people, and they wanted to join. And so we expanded our charter into Kalkaska, Mansalona, I don't remember.
But that's why we went to Kalkaska.
Yeah, it was a request from the members.
And we started downtown, I remember.
Yep.
That building there, which really is an antique in a way. It's been around a long time. But it was a unique setting. And from there, we grew to the south part of town. And and then the north part of town. And that's where Polly got all excited. But it worked out fine when we, built the new building. But we were downtown. How long were we downtown?
Oh, we were downtown, 6, 7 years.
Was it that long?
Oh, well, it was more than that because the new office in Kalkaska was built after I retired.
Yeah, but not the one on the south end.
No. Well, it was already started from people that were able to join.
And we,
Because you had family members that could join that lived in Kalkaska. And
or didn't live there,
yeah, right.
but we, saturated the Kalkaska market, as you people know. We have a lot of, like over 50% of the market there, which says something about our credit union. And again, Rod was here when we got there. He quit after we built the building, but it still shows the satisfaction and the trust that we have, and still have. Didn't go away.
And NBD, after we first got going, cut their hours back to 5 hours a day. So that just helped. But I had such a good following with the bank. I've been here for 12 years, I think. Ran the office, so you get good clientele. And I had people, I worked at Manton before, and some followed me. And so when we started the credit union, they followed me that way. So.
I think it's the same issue that came up in Kalkaska, that Kingsley was right on the way, and there was no way you'd have to go to White Lake or Kalkaska because we didn't have electronic, deposits and all that. But because of the natural flow there, it worked out that Kingsley was the next branch to come in because of, am I right, Rod? It was Kingsley, right? Yeah. So that's why people were coming that way, and it made it a lot easier on them. And some of the one bank that was there kind of went out of business, didn't it?
Well, you have Traverse City State Bank, and I know that they were also looking at this area when MBD went out. But I think they came up with the conclusion that Forest area had too much hold on that area for clientele, that it wasn't going to survive there, and we didn't have the big commercial bank.
I mean, Alex lived there.
Yeah.
You lived there. Right. Why would you go to Manton? I mean, it doesn't seem like it's anywhere in close.
Right. Well, when we had changed the charter, I think we covered Watford County, and those people all had to either go, they worked in Canada, basically. But a lot of them knew me because I had worked at the bank. I was born and raised in Manton, went to school there. And so you had a lot of people that still wanted to join here and maybe couldn't because of relationship or not having family. So it was another small town. And they wanted some alternatives.
So we bought the one building, we converted it into a credit union.
Yep, we bought a beauty salon, turned that into a credit union.
Beauty didn't help either one of us.
But then we ended up, MAD pulled out of it. So that left us as the only financial institution. I think it was the trust we had built, and then people wanted to have their own destiny. We didn't want Chicago or Detroit or whatever telling our local community what we're going to do. And I think that was a big thing.
Yeah, and NBD went through a series of changes.
Yep.
And we wound up, buying at least 2 of their buildings. But the trust that was there was that we would come in and help people. And remember, that's what our goal is to help people. And we were able to do that because we had enough money to be able to lend and help people do what they needed to do. Doesn't mean we are always happy with some of the results,
Right.
but most of the time, 95%, we were good. So, and the trust is still there.
And we made a lot of small loans where the banks, and that wasn't profitable for them.
No. Did we expect the growth? I can't believe we did. It just happened.
We did try to map out where we're gonna be down the road 5 years. And you looked at that and you said, oh, no way are we gonna hit that. We just bypassed it in a hurry.
We did some things to help, like special deals and that would bring people in, and it did. And then, we started this thing with automobiles in the last, 3 years. But that brought in people, but not really members. They just are.
Brought in loans.
Yeah.
And back then when we were younger, I used to go at it and go out and buy CDs from other
Oh, that's right.
places around the United States. I worked with a couple brokers and they would get us money in. And you had to watch how much you could invest or take in as outside money.
We still do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So-
We have brokers that do that for us.
yeah.
Because we have so many investments that
Mhm.
we could never, that was a definite change,
Yeah,
right?
right. But we were heavy into real estate
Yeah.
and heavy into mobile home lending, which we didn't have very many losses on the mobile home business. I know I sat on a couple seminars and talked about with other credit unions what we were doing to be profitable. And I said, we cover a lot of like lower income people that starting out, that can't afford the $100,000 place, started out in a mobile home and then worked their way up. And I still have people today that says, well, if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't have anything today.
Well, where we were at, I remember doing the committee to check out it was interesting because it was like we worked in the bank vault, the old bank vault, because we'd come in before business was done. I can't even remember who was on it with me, but it was interesting because there wasn't a lot of room in that.
Right.
The second credit union other than the
old bank building.
the old bank building.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was tight, but it was very educational because you got to learn what the nuts and bolts. Plus, the other thing that happened was that board members had to go to class. We didn't have to go, but we did.
Yeah.
And everybody went, and we learned a lot. Things have gotten better, but in the sense of learning. But back then, there was, you had to go to Grand Rapids or Detroit or not Mount Pleasant.
Conferences.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
One thing was interesting when I had an examiner come in when we were in the bait shop and they said, well, do you have guns in here? No. Or I had the pistols in the safe and with the money. Well, so that was part of the business. But then back then, I had an examiner, was an older guy, and he would call me up and he said, Rod, what, do you need anything? I'll pick it up from down here, downstate, bring it up to you. Supplies. Different credit unions would send me journals and log sheets for membership as a make deposits, or the sheets we'd carry and figure out everything on it. A lot of that stuff was just given to us. Furniture was given to us from other credit unions, trying to help get you started. We were tight on money, so we didn't blow it.
No.
There was no money there to blow.
When you go over 100%, it's.
I didn't. When we first ran the credit union on the bait shop, after, I don't know, 6 months or so, they started paying me $600 a month it was for rent and the phone and all that kind of stuff. That was your wage. And I didn't receive a wage till we moved to the office at
The old
main
main building, yeah.
And it seemed like it was $1,000 a month or something.
I don't
like
know.
that. Everybody was following.
Yeah, they were, everyone.
Julie Tuck was the first one that we hired. When we had the bait shop, we moved to Uptown because it wasn't zoned for having employees.
Yeah.
So that's why we moved up there.
Yeah, just worms.
Yeah.